Today, we manage 3,100 units of multifamily in 4 states with the full vertical integration. We're doing the property management, we're doing the renovations, we're doing the acquisitions. We have an in-house acquisition team that is looking for the deals and finding them off market, and that's what we're doing.
Your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Our guest today, Stas Grinberg. He's co-founder and managing principal of Vision and Beyond. Stas and co-founder Peter Gizunterman started the business working out of a Starbucks. He expanded into 5 profitable companies with 3 corporate offices located in Ohio, New York, and Israel. Close to 60 employees and obviously many investors worldwide. Previously worked for 2 Israeli investment firms that targeted on finance new construction opportunities in Birmingham and Atlanta, and now Los Angeles as well. But 3,000 plus doors, multifamily, 250 million in assets in Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, and Texas. His personal motto is "Be bold and original." So he received the prestigious Israeli President's Outstanding Soldier Badge and is IDF officer in the Armed Corps in the Army Reserve as well. So, Stas, I enjoyed the interview with Stas today. You're going to hear a number of things, but we dove into something that may surprise you, but a crisis in their business and something that happened a number of years ago. I think how they handled that is telling, right? And I think how they handled it, man, was it bad in the moment? It was pivotal for growth in their business and how that was done. You're going to learn a lot from Stas today. Welcome to the show. Honored to have you on. I read a little bit about you, and I'm looking forward to the conversation, just your experience, your military background, all those things that I'm shaped by as well. I know the influence that has on many entrepreneurs, and I'm looking forward to hearing about some of that as well in your background and but in the way you and your partner has scaled, right? And you all done so well, and from starting from that Starbucks, right, to where you all are at today. So, well, let's jump in. Let's give the listeners a little more about who you are, and let's dive into some of your background. And we're going to jump into some of the things that are your superpowers to help the listeners today.
All right. Hi, Whitney. Thank you for having me on. Uh, so, Stas Grinberg, I'm 35, married with 3 children, currently live in Nashville, Tennessee, and kind of on the line between Nashville and Miami and all the states I'm operating in. We started the journey, me and my partner, as childhood friends from a small town in the north of Israel. We served in the army as combat officers in different units. And we knew since childhood that we want to do some future projects together, and we just didn't know what they are yet. As combat officers in the idea, we started investing our capital. And we thought at the time in 2011, we thought that the Israeli market is already too high by prices of real estate and it doesn't make sense to pay those prices. It did triple since, but that was our analysis. And we started investing in the US market. And at the time, we started investing in like small new development single families in Alabama. And we did it through a syndication company from Israel. And we told the guy, my partner, Peter, told the owner of that company that if it's going to be successful, then we're going to after the release from the army, we're going to join them. And that's what happened. And after that, we had quite a lot of painful experiences with investing from distance, from Israel in a far country through far syndicators. But all of those painful lessons did not discourage us, but kind of got us more involved, more curious, more understanding that you need to be closer to the information, closer to the transactions closer to the deals. And the last part was kind of a really bad deal we did in 2017 when we invested in a commercial office building in Atlanta, Georgia, together with investors that we brought in. And that was the last painful lesson that kind of told us we need to do real estate from the ground. We need to be present and local to the real estate we are doing. And we gathered those investors. We told them that we owe them this money personally because it could have been prevented, damages in the deal, and that we're going to repay them back, and it might take a couple years. We jumped on a plane. We got to Cincinnati, Ohio, and we started growing our company from single families to fourplexes to eventually larger complexes. And today we manage 3,100 units of multifamily in 4 states with the full vertical integration. We're doing the property management, we're doing the renovations, we're doing the acquisitions. We have an in-house acquisition team that is looking for the deals and finding them off market, and that's what we're doing.
Wow. So many things there we could talk about. I wanted to jump into a couple things, but you mentioned obviously difficulties investing from a distance, right? And you learned so much there. You realize you need to be, you said, closer to the information, closer to the deals. No doubt that's always helpful, especially being in another country or
Yeah.
halfway around the world. That could be very difficult to really know what's happening, right? But this bad deal in 2017, you said obviously you lost some investor capital, but you all have committed to paying it back. Is that right?
Yeah. So it was a true crisis for us, the event. And it took us 3 days to process how we're going to tell them the new pieces of information that we know. And we decided to just go with the truth. And we bravely told them what happened and what we understand of the situation in the deal. And we committed to pay them back. And it took us 2.5 years, but we paid them back. We got them 70% back from the project itself, and the rest we paid from our pocket. And today, those investors actually are investors in our company, and they are the people that spread the word and actually kind of ambassadors of our reputation.
Yeah, I believe that. And I've heard that from other operators as well. The few that I've met that have been on the show that have actually said that, right? We've lost some money, but hey, we paid everybody back. And, but I think it becomes almost I mean, it's massive learning experience, right? And it just shapes you, I think, in a way that is different from somebody that's never experienced a difficult deal, right? Or deals yet anyway. So if you're in this business long enough, it's going to happen, right? You're going to make a mistake, right? And there's going to be projects that go away that you didn't expect, right? Pretty much everyone's probably going to do that to some extent, but unfortunately, some worse than others. I love that you all committed to paying your investors back and just telling them the truth. Speak to the response that they had maybe right then and then compared to now. You already said they're your ambassadors now, but was that the way they felt then, or did that take some time? Because I want the listener to hear that, even the past
Uh,
investors that are listening to hear that as well.
Firstly, I want to mention that there's nothing that's going to grow a business or an entrepreneur like crisis. And one of the most important of role of a leader in any kind of organization is to be able to identify a crisis, to understand that crisis is happening, and then to try to find solutions to a crisis, and then to grow from the crisis. So uh, saying that they were at the beginning very confused, very hesitant, very there was even some trust rattled, obviously, at that point. We brought in a legal counsel to help them to be kind of the in between person that is trying to recover the best from the deal and kind of a third party objective to the situation. which helped. And we told him that he's going to be representing them until it's all over. Take the time that it takes, and and it's some of them were trusting from day one and kind of appreciated the honesty, and some of them were more on the combative side, and it took them time to adjust and adapt. But eventually, when we kind of kept all of our promises through the 2.5 years and paid everyone back, then I don't think there's one of them that did not appreciate it looking at it backwards.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I appreciate you just highlighting and being so transparent about that because I feel like in the moment, man, we're so tempted to maybe not do what we feel like is right. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
when there's so much pressure, in that kind of moment like that, and I loved what you said there. There's nothing that is going to grow an entrepreneur like crisis, right? You're recognizing that crisis, overcoming that crisis. I thought that was a great quote right there. No doubt about it. It's just like the soldier, right? It's very different. The ones who have experienced
Yeah,
the battle, no
yeah,
doubt, and those are the ones you want to run next to. So, all right, we'll move forward a little bit. You all grew quickly. You and your partner, I think it's interesting that you both were in the military together and many of those experiences together. I think there's a camaraderie that happens in those scenarios. I've experienced it in law enforcement and military and all different scenarios for myself where, hey, these men that I mean, when you're in tough situations, I mean, they're like you just can't even imagine being in almost, right? I think back and these guys that stood next to you and there's a camaraderie there of trust and relationship that's built like almost can't be done any other way. And it's the same as just like this crisis almost, right? You get through those
yeah.
things together and there's a unifying that happens and a growth even together. I think that's so incredible. Let's move forward a little bit and speak to the next components of your all's growth. Like what happened into scale right quickly, 3,100 units, and even being vertically integrated, right? None of that happens just by sitting on your hands, right? And so what
Yeah.
were, some of the next steps that really were a launching pad for you for your all's growth?
So the first things that happened, and we decided to be vertically integrated in advance. Maybe it was trauma shaped from that event, and the, the initial desire in the business was to control every single aspect of it, and therefore we are the ones who are leasing the apartments. We are the ones who are doing the due diligence. We are the ones who are managing the renovations. We are the ones who are kind of doing everything. And eventually we started uh, understanding that we need people to help us because we cannot keep function. We got to capacity. We were working 24/7, running to one of our complexes. One of the first complexes we bought was one of the hardest deals to manage we ever had. And it was kind of a boot camp in a sense, because it was a building that every time it was raining, the entire first floor was flooding. And in the middle of the night, we had to go there with, as soon as we get a phone call from a tenant, we went there and we took a bucket and we tried to get the water out. And it was a pretty rough building. And we understood that we need people to help us. We brought someone with us that is gonna do some acquisitions. We brought someone in with us that will start raising capital, and we started bringing people on board. And uh, every time we felt like something is taking too much of our attention, or we find ourselves dealing 50% of our time with, that means we need an employee in that position. And one of the things that really helped us scale was that at the beginning, naturally for us two army guys, we brought in people that are kind of similar DNA, also past company commanders in the army, and that kind of really increased the workforce because those people were very strong, very solution seeking, very not hesitant from crisis or bad situation, and before they bring you a problem, they try to suggest a couple potential solutions, and that was part of the secret of the fast growth. And eventually, that was one of the lessons that led us to create this foundation in Israel of retired company commanders, where we understood that it's a special, specially talented workforce that no one counts on. No one is waiting for them outside of the army. They retire at the age of 27, 28. They have been through very hard challenges and had always, they've been chosen over and over again. They had to overcome crazy challenges that people aren't even aware of. And yet their value coming out of the army is zero. Not only zero, it's negative because they're behind someone who's been through college, who has 5 years of professional experience, and their experience is not considered professional experience. And but we recognize that it's a huge strength, crazy manpower that they will not stop at anything before the job is complete. And that was part of the
Yeah,
secret
that's
sauce for
interesting.
us.
That's yeah, it's just interesting to think about that, how they're viewed. They're going into the job force. I think you said it well there that they're viewed as being behind because they don't have the college degree yet or certain kind of schooling or those things. And I tell you that the more experienced people that I interview, I feel like it's it's almost a transition of thinking for the business owner, entrepreneur as they're growing. As you hire enough people and have to let enough people go, you eventually realize that that character and that training that even somebody in the military, but it's not always just military folks, but somebody that's of high character, like you can't train that almost. You can't teach it, right? And that's almost something
Yeah,
that was taught right when they were little, right? At home or through military and experiences, things like that. That, man, you can train somebody to underwrite a multifamily deal, right? You can train somebody to find the deals or manage them or whatever. We can get you training or how to raise money, but I can't train you to be honest, right? Or even to have
yeah,
the mindset, like you said, of solution seeking and pushing forward until the job is done. I love that. No doubt about it. Speak to you or these the members that you hired. Were they people that you already knew in the military, or did you go seek after them? I just wonder how you found them. 'Cause it's always a question of, man, how do I find these amazing a talent folks that are going to come work for me that are solution seeking and have those characteristics like you're talking about?
so originally we went with the people we know. It was someone who's the head of investor relations for us in Israel, is the guy that served with Peter from boot camp all the way to company commanders of two companies in the same division. And we hired another guy. We knew his wife, and she kind of suggested to us. And then we took one of their best friends in, and this is how we kind of found it and started it. But today we have created this foundation in Israel that we already have 1,400 members of those retired company commanders in, and we're helping them to connect them with the external organizations that could kind of gain from that talent. And on the other side, they can build a plan of how those people will start maybe in the bottom of the organization, but with some growth potential and with a plan on how do they evolve eventually to be senior managers in that organization with a serious plan. So we're solving the problem of organizations to find this kind of manpower, and on the other side of those guys to be able to find their path to success after serving the country and doing what they did and kind of shining their value.
That's awesome. I appreciate your give back in that way. We'll talk about that a little more in a minute, probably. But That's incredible. 1,400 people already in that are involved. That's amazing. You talked about if something is taking, I think you said more than 50% of your time, you need to hire somebody else to do it. And I don't think I've heard that metric before like that, to think about it like that. But I think that's really good to think through that. Like, what is taking the most of your time? And often it is something that you could find somebody else to do better, probably than you, right?
Yeah.
Is there a couple examples you could give of how you've done that? Or maybe the thinking behind how you're watching your time, you're spending it on the highest value things, but then also, hey, maybe you're hiring somebody that can take over those things and even do it better than you.
Yeah, and I don't think of it as a professional metric for an experienced big organization. I think that it's more of a growing startup, call it, organization where it's still small and you don't necessarily have the mind around you to know when to hire and who to hire and how to hire for future business development. At the beginning, you're just trying to manage your attention and your time, and you are the most crucial piece to the creation of the company. And this is how I used it at the beginning. So at the beginning, I know that we started by driving around and looking for deals, and that was the most important thing because if we don't find enough deals, it doesn't matter how we get or what are we gonna do with that? So we've been driving every day for like since like 8 a.m. to like 8 p.m. And then at the night we were analyzing deals, seeing what deals were going to foreclosures and what is happening. And we had this understanding that we're gonna understand real estate better if we're gonna knock on 1,000 doors. Every 1,000 doors that we're gonna knock on, we're gonna learn a lot of valuable lessons. And then after finding enough deals, we knew to start handling other challenges. We hired a person that will do the acquisitions for us, that will do this analysis for us, and then will bring deals to the table. And then from their point, we started with him growing an acquisition department and kind of taking it into a more professional direction. And today, after I saw that I have a lot of headache with the acquisition department and a lot of challenges that they create, I brought an experienced CIO, someone who is like 25 years in the real estate industry and is able to oversee because eventually you build a good acquisition department, then you need to approve or not approve deals, and it again becomes a headache. And you need to know what deals you're not going to make, and it's more important in the business than the deals you will make.
That's right.
So I brought an experienced CIO to kind of manage the risk better, to do the underwriting and the due diligence on the deals better. And then that's how this part of the business grew, for example. And then same thing with the management company. At the beginning, it was me, Peter, and then we brought in a kind of an office manager that eventually that's my wife today. And then we started bringing more people. So want someone to do the maintenance because we saw that's a lot of what we're dealing with, and kind of grew it from the ground. And by adding a position every time that either it takes too much of our attention or the people that are beginning to scream or break because they have now too much on their shoulders, and we need to help them by putting another person in the position.
That's helpful, even to think through your hires and who you hired and kind of the order there as well. And maybe give us a tip on, I will say first, I agree completely. Like surrounding yourself with people that are more experienced than you, right? If you want to build a great organization, because I love that because you have 25 experience from this guy, you have 10 or 15 over. I'm just making that up kind of, but
Yeah,
then you got 10 over here from this person. And they come from different organizations, right? And all kinds of different experience. And all of a sudden you get everybody around the same table, right? And there's just like all kinds of things happening, right? It's I
yeah.
love that. Speak to leading a group of individuals like that are all more experienced than you are in the business that you're running.
So that's definitely one of the part in the business that excites me the most because that is always when as soon as you bring people that are extreme that are by far more experienced than you, you need to understand two things. One is that you need to be able to listen and let them lead in their area. And two is that you need to better yourself in order to be able to challenge those kind of people. And from the beginning of the business, the beginning it was with advisors. We always look, we always had the understanding, me and Peter, that the bigger resources we're gonna have, the better we're gonna be able to pay the next level of talent in order to bring this level of experience and then business development and then everything that comes with it. So we always paid for advisors. We always wanted to pay the next level advisor. We always felt like it's gonna take 6 to 12 months to 18 months until an advisor gives us everything we need to kind of learn from that person or get to the point where the business is now overgrowing the advisor. And then we need to hire the next one. And I think it's something people don't always understand building a business, and they're trying to kind of avoid paying as much as they can. While I think that it's a key to think how can you afford paying more talented people and more talented advisors in order to learn the next level lessons then and all of a sudden challenges that look so big now seem like small challenges of the past. It's part of the secret of growth.
Love that. We could talk all day just about that. I think. Unfortunately, we're gonna have to move to a few final
Yeah.
questions. That's I wonder. I want to get your thoughts just on what's next for multifamily, right? And your thoughts on what's going to happen, or how what you think is going to happen is shaping, right? What you all are doing in the business, buying, selling, and those things. What's your expectations over the next 6 to 12 months?
So we as a company are pivoting big time from older type multifamilies to new construction. I think that the whole market of existing multifamily got into a crisis. Uh, it's a double crisis. One crisis is the interest rates and the result of the inflation, but the other side, and I think it's the bigger problem because it's here to stay, is the inflation itself and the increase in operational expenses, like insurance costs that is rising across the country and is going to continue to rise because insurance companies are still losing money and still are not reflecting all the losses they had in the last few years. And then property taxes that are always going up and they're not going down, and no one adjusts it. And utilities expenses. It affects every person, but property owners that are managing multifamily are paying more for everything. And then the government, in order to try to uh, calm the inflation down, is raising the interest rates. And then the property owners are in bad situation, in bad shape. And on the one hand, on the other side, prices are not going down of real estate, not dramatically, not enough to reflect those burdens. And therefore, we've been not transactional for over a year now because we have decided as the crisis began, we're not going to do deals just to do deals. We're not going to continue being transactional just because the business needs it. We are going to buy deals and bring investors in as long as it makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense, then eventually the company will crash because of it. So be it. We're not going to buy bad deals and try to improve the situation. So we've been in a kind of in a stopping point, waiting for the market to adjust one way or another. Either the prices will go down dramatically enough to reflect that, or the operational expenses will go back down, or the income will grow, but something needs to make sense. And that didn't happen so far to us in existing real estate. But that crisis forced us to go into new development and form new JVs. And we're beginning to, in a very growing market, like in Miami and Florida, we're beginning to do new development. Here's
Awesome. Yeah, I think interesting. I've had numerous interviews recently where people have been in a certain kind of or asset class for many years, and then they pivot, right? They're pivoting for some
Yeah.
specific reasons, and even like you're talking about, Stats, a few other questions. What would you say is your best advice for passive investors right now?
For passive investors right now, I would think number one, my always best advice for passive investors is to go into deals with if with a bank involved in the transaction. That's one way to protect yourself as a passive investor that is unable to do perfect due diligence on a deal. If a bank is going in, a bank is a relatively good entity to protect its capital. And then if a bank believes in the business plan and in the developer and in the deal itself, it's a layer of protection. And I actually learned it from this crisis investment that I had in 2017 in a very bad deal in Atlanta. I had an investor that didn't join the deal. He was a son of a very wealthy father who has a lot of real estate experience. And he told him, we're not going into this deal because there's no bank involved. If a bank will be involved, we'll invest double of what you wanted to invest. And he came to us with it, and we said, no, there's not going to be a bank. And and he eventually did not find himself in a bad situation. And that was an interesting lesson because at the time it sounded like a weird advice.
Hmm.
And I would say that's the number one key advice.
What are some of the most important metrics that you track? Could be personally or professionally.
Did I track for myself?
Yeah, either way, either just what's most important to you. It could be the metrics for success for a multifamily business, or it could be you on the personal, just your personal side.
So it varies between the business and the personal. For the business, we're always kind of trying to set the metrics that we measure and set the yearly goal and and then the variety of goals, whether if it's the equity raising, but on the personal level, I would say it's from self care and training hard, kind of staying in shape, to reading books, to like personal involvement, and then and those are the kind of metrics.
Any daily habits that you have that have produced a high return for you?
I think jujitsu.
Oh wow.
Uh, yeah, I train jujitsu almost every day, 6 trainings a week probably, and then keeping myself in shape for jujitsu. So I also train outside of jujitsu to kind of stay in shape, and then reading books, which is hard for someone who runs a company and has 3 children and kind of growing in all aspects of life logistics that kind of try always to get you away from it. But reading books, it's very important for an entrepreneur. And then making sure that I give enough attention to the people around me to really know what's going on and stay feet on the ground in the business.
That's how do you like to give back?
So uh, we always donate after transactions, and until we created our foundation, we always were donating outside. But now that we created the foundation of the retired company commanders, which we did not know going into it how big of the problem that we spotted, and it really exploded. We did not expect in 2 years to be with 1,400 retired company commanders and being recognized by the IDF as the official organization that is responsible for their destiny after the army. And it really is something that became a bigger goal than we anticipated, but we so far financed most of it. And we still are not great at kind of raising capital for that and asking for charity in a sense. It's unusual, unnatural for us. And it's a challenge that we have to personally overcome, to not just keep financing it, but letting other people help and be a part of the bigger cause. So that's our next challenge, to grow this organization uh, to a bigger, stronger entity by being able to kind of asking for help.
That's awesome. I can relate to that. Stats, I also have a foundation, and
Yeah.
it's a different
So that,
ask. It's like we raise money from investors for deals, but then over here on that side,
yeah,
it's a different language. And, but man, I appreciate you giving back in that way and caring for, man, that many people, 1,400 in 2 years. That's incredible growth. And just a desire to help all those folks coming out of the military. Love that. Your heart there to help them. Appreciate you giving back to us today. Just your transparency and really being open about this crisis, right? I think
yeah,
many of us will benefit because of your hard lessons there, right? And I think it says a lot about you and your partner and how that was handled. And I think in the moment it stinks, right, in a massive way, but it can be a pivotal moment of growth, and that's what I think it was for you all, right? I was like, man, it's horrible in the moment, and I hope we can all learn from you in that. It's like, man, when you're under that pressure, it is a moment of truth, right? It's a moment of it could be
yeah.
a moment of massive growth in the future, depending on how it's handled. And I think you're a testimony to that. So just grateful for how you shared about that and how you're hiring people and surrounding yourself with amazing people that have just produced massive growth for you all. Tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you and learn more about you.
So, well, I have my LinkedIn at Stas Grinberg, or the company's website at vnbinvest.com. Those would be the two best ways. And it was a big pleasure with me. And I've read about your organization, and I think it's an amazing cause. And it's kind of one of our dreams of me and my wife, after our own three children, to adopt a child in the future. We think it's one of the biggest meets to us, one of the best, if not the best act, one single act that a person could do for another person, is to adopt a child and change his life entirely. And I think that's something that is a personal dream of mine. So
Wow.
great job for that.
Appreciate you sharing that. Yeah. Thank you so much. Appreciate the kind words. Thank you for being with us again today. I hope that you have learned a lot from the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you're telling your friends about the Real Estate Syndication Show and how they can also build wealth in real estate. You can also go to lifebridgecapital.com and start investing today.